Welcome to Catechism with Catholics over coffee. I'm your host, Jonathan Burnos. Welcome back. This is an aside episode. I'm not sure how we'll number this, but sometimes when I jot down notes and I have thoughts, I like to share them. And this is a type of video journal that allows me to share my thoughts. I still write them down, but it's hard to decide sometimes if you want to blog post them or if you just want to create a video and talk through them. So this is one of those. I'm creating a video to kind of talk through this semi-blog post. So who knows what number of blog this is, but I've got my coffee, so it's official. So welcome back to the Catechism with Catholics over coffee. My studio is a little dark. I probably should add some lights. It's getting late in the day. I needed an afternoon coffee, so I figured it was a good time to record this. I was in Adoration today. I like to go to Adoration once a week. I go on Thursdays. I have done this for years. Even before I decided to revert back to being a Catholic, I decided to check out Adoration. I wanted to see what the big deal was. Why did people go to this? Why did people sit in front of the host and on display and pray? And let me tell you, it's life-changing because, again, it's tied to, it's a sacrament. The Eucharist is a sacrament which we partake in through communion. And ultimately, I mean, this is what we're moving towards anyways. If you're a believer, you're a follower of Christ, you're a Catholic, we know that, we're working towards the wedding supper of the Lamb, the wedding feast of the Lamb at the end of time when God brings us all back together. That's the end goal, right? And so we have a component of that right there in front of us in Adoration. And we're looking at the Eucharist. We're looking at the heart of Jesus. And if you're not a Catholic and you don't believe in the true presence of Jesus Christ in the Eucharist, then this isn't going to make sense to you. But I can tell you this, I know where you're coming from because I was there and I know where I'm at now. And I absolutely believe in the true presence. There's a lot of Catholics that don't believe in the true presence. So we could go on a whole tangent about the real presence in the Eucharist. We might do that at some point. But what I wanted to talk about today was I wanted to go back to the just even a higher level than that. I like to sometimes, when I studied apologetics, when I made the decision that I wanted to learn and know apologetics because I needed to defend myself, I needed to defend the faith that I had found, to other people in my past, friends, family that were Protestant, that are Christians, that would question, what is this guy doing? Why is he reverting? Why is he converting over to be a Roman Catholic of all things? That's like jumping, for them, it was jumping to the dark side, right? It's like I joined the empire. It's like, I was part of the resistance and I'm part of the Rebel Alliance. And then all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go join the empire. That's what it was like for Protestants, but it's not at all. So, before I get too deep into that, as I knew, apologetics as a Catholic was going to be tough, but it was essential for me to be able to defend why I was making these huge life decisions. But I started with just a simpler topic, and it's part of my own history. My past is that, as a young person growing up Catholic, cradle Catholic, not really understanding why we do what we do, why do I go to Mass, what is the Mass? I had no idea. I'm going through the motions. Something sticks. But as I'm going through the motions as a Catholic, eventually my family leaves and I go with them. Too young to know, too young to decide. And really, it shakes my foundation. I didn't know that at the time, but it shakes my foundation in that it really causes confusion into what I believe at all. I'm become agnostic, and agnostic in a way of like, I believe there's a God, but I'm not really quite sure who that person is, who God is as to have a relationship with. There's definitely no relationship. It's the big man in the sky with the white beard. That's what it is for me. And I had to wrestle with that. And I didn't want to offend other people that believed in something different. If they didn't believe in my big white, bearded guy in the clouds, who am I I have no evidence of this. It's only faith. And this faith by itself isn't enough for me to be confident to tell someone else to like, oh, this is what I believe and this is why. I could say this is what I believe, but there was no why behind it. So, I go on as agnostic for years, not really understanding what I believe. And so I've been there, and I took that experience that I had as an agnostic, and as I transitioned to a Christian, a believer and a follower of Jesus Christ. And there's a bigger story to that transition. What happened, what brought me there was a near-death experience. And I know some people say they have those, and so mine was unique. Had to do with climbing a mountain, the final summit. So that takes place. It gives me experience coming from that place that I was as an agnostic. I can definitely speak to it. But I use this, I started here, this agnostic or an atheist to a theist. I really went back and I evaluated, I really took a deep dive into atheism and trying to understand how someone could be completely, how could they be a complete atheist, not believe in God at all. And so I'll say that, from that experience to moving to an agnostic to Catholic, completely polar opposite. I knew that from the apologetic standpoint that was going to be my first block. That was going to be my kind of where I would take my first stand, because I was comfortable standing there. And I was comfortable finally being confident in what I believed in. So I'll throw this out here as my aside today is I would ask a question. Why do we put limits on God? As believers in God, not just Christians, but as monotheistic theists that believe in God, I understand that an atheist really can always rely on their disbelief. They can stand in their own disbelief. I don't believe in God. And it stems from these limitations that we can maybe ascertain from a supreme being, a creator. If there is one that exists, we look around us and we look at the evidence of what can kind of prove to us personally that there is a God or there isn't a God. And there's so much around us that points to a God that if there is a God, then he doesn't have limitless power, right? And for me and for an atheist that's struggling with this, we would start there. We would say, well, a creator of the universe, of all things, this existence that we're in would need to have limitless power, right? That makes sense to me, that a perfect God would have no limits. And so because there's this existence of pain and suffering in this imperfect world, this very disordered and imperfect world, they would point to a creator. For an atheist, if you haven't decided yet, it would point to someone who's observing the science and the evidence around them, what they can see, feel, touch. It would point to that there must not be a creator. If we have evil in the world, what we call evil, we have pain and suffering in this imperfect world, then the creator, if there was a creator, he doesn't have full power to stop it, or he's choosing not to, and that doesn't seem perfect, right? And so they, as an atheist, would ground themselves into this existence based on chance and chaos. That's really what it comes down to, is this chaotic existence that we came about from nothing, and that it's only by chance that we even came about, that we're here, right? I always struggle with that. For me, that really pointed more to, was evidence that there is a God, because I see complex structure, I see order, I see organization around me. And as I've tried to use this before in apologetics, I get a lot of pushback from atheists right away that will say, this is an emotion, play on emotions, and this isn't a strong argument. And that always baffles me. One, that I have the right to share it, my own belief system, right? And then two, I don't see it as a weak argument. Even though I constantly hear when I blog post it, I hear from other people, non-believers, non-Christians, atheists that say, none of this that I say makes sense. It's all based in emotion. And I would disagree. I think once you make that crossover and you take that step into believing that there is a God, I accept that there is a God. This is where I began, that there must be a God because we exist. For me, going back to that simple question of can something come from nothing? For me, the answer is no, something can't come from nothing. And so if you tell me that, the building blocks of us existence have always existed, that we don't see an example of that anywhere. We don't have science and evidence to prove that. It's such a big idea to wrap our head around. And that doesn't mean that it's not true, but there are more things that I can see. There's more science that proves there's a beginning to things. And because there's a beginning to things, then something comes from something which is created must be by creator, right? I don't know. I don't know if this makes sense for many people listening, if this is logical, but for me it is. And this is what I wrestle with. This is real. So, but if we step into that belief that we believe in God, we can't lean on that dilemma. You can't go back once you believe that there is a God. You can't continue to go back and grab things from the atheist perspective. and their beliefs, and that there's no God. So why do we do? Well, if we can't rely on that anymore, we step into a belief in God, then we really have to accept that God could be all-powerful and perfect. And if there is an all-powerful and perfect God who embodies goodness, who embodies love, however you define what good is, that there's moral ground, there's moral fiber, and that it's positive, it's good, then we eventually have to wrestle with trying to understand the purpose of suffering and death, because we know it exists, right? And that's what we're going to come back to. Is now, as a theist, believing in God, we can't take the cop out. Then how do we make sense of suffering and death? Why then do we put, overall as Christians, I'm going to go now make a jump into Christians, not just theists, but as Christians, why do we put limits on God when it comes to our belief system? The doubts that we have, these doubts end up becoming fodder for the non-believers, for the atheists to feed on and use against us, against theists, those that believe in God. So why do we do it? Why can't we stand confidently in what God is, what we see around us as a creator, and remove the box that we put him in and say that God can do everything, he could do anything that he wants because he's God? So I think a lot of the fallacy and faults that we run into as Christians in theology and interpretation, they come from clinging to these doubts, right? They come to clinging to fear, afraid of suffering, afraid of pain, afraid of death, afraid of the unknown. And we take those, we have a hard time letting go of those fears, and we allow them to shape our beliefs. And that can really only hurt our faith. And that divides us. It causes Christians to turn against other Christians. It causes Catholics to turn against Catholics. So we begin to judge wrong and right. And that is the standpoint of God. That's what God gets to do. We don't get to judge wrong and right in that sense. And so when we do that, we begin to form our own truths. And those truths we use to support our own understanding. And we're not supposed to lean on our own understanding. If we go into Scripture. And all of that makes sense to me, right? If we trust God in everything, we trust him with all of our heart, we trust him with our mind, we trust him in faith, we start to see everything pointing to God. And that can only happen. We can only get clarity. We can only find truth if we can do that. Now, the details on how to do that, that's a little more complex. It's a little bit harder to talk through that on a blog post or on a video for our podcast today. But I just wanted to throw that out there is just some building blocks and some understanding. Again, going back to the very beginning, if we look at apologetics, we look at an atheist stance versus a theist and what we believe and why we believe in God. But if we stand on our own understanding, which is the times we're living in, we're living in prideful times. If you look around, it's all about my truth is my truth, my truth. It doesn't matter if it's your truth. It doesn't matter if it's the truth. It's my truth. We've known that for years now. And post-COVID, in this world that we're in, it's more prevalent than ever before. People take a stand. That's why it's so polar in politics than ever before. That it comes to blows. We don't just get in someone's face and have a conversation anymore and ask questions. We get in their face with anger, and we get in their face to defend our truth. And there's no conceding anymore. We used to be able to concede. We would find middle ground with someone we didn't agree with politically, lifestyle, and we could talk about it. And it's scary now because we've gotten to a point where a lot of people don't do that. And families can't exist in that way. That's why we see so many families that fall apart, so many families that struggle with connection, broken families, broken homes, and broken families lead to broken kids. Broken kids grow up to be broken adults. Disorder, right? Sin, vice comes from disorder. It comes from a twisted idea of love. It comes from everything that's not the truth. That's where we're at. And that's what's calling to me, and why I write and what I focus on now are all of those specifically the impact and what we see. And that's what calls to my heart. That's what I'm reaching out to kind of hope we can make some resources and help people understand that we have tools. We have the means to combat, to fix, to heal, to help, and we have to start taking advantage of those tools. So, and we can't rely on within the Catholic Church, our Roman Catholic Church, we can't rely on our clergy to be the all, right? We need them to administer the sacraments, because that's what we're getting to. That's what we need, is the grace the sacraments give us. We can't rely on our clergy to deliver them the grace that Christ gives us through the sacraments. We can't rely on our clergy to it's not a Uber Eats delivery. We can't order it and have it delivered to us for convenience. We have to go and seek it out. We have to work it. If you've ever done any kind of mental health, you've done counseling, you've done therapy, you have to work the plan, right? You have to come up with a plan. You have to work it. You can't just talk about it and then move on and don't do anything, and then you come back to the next session where it's time to talk and you haven't done any work. So that's what we're doing here at the Final Summit. That's what we're doing at the Catechism with Catholics Over Coffee, is we're working the plan. We're going to talk about a plan, and we're going to work the plan. That's right. I like it. This is a good episode. Thank you for attending or checking us out. Attending, like this is live. Thanks for checking us out. Share us on social media. Check out thefinalsummit.com. That's our website. We'll find all of our services. We have Koinonia, small group framework for Catholic small groups. We have hiccup. Can you control the hiccup? Oh, okay. That's better. I don't know what that was. We have Res Tantum, which is our catechesis, heavy catechesis portion, our arm of the ministry, which is really rooted in the sacrament of marriage. If you ever wanted to know more about the sacrament of marriage, that's Res Tantum. And we have Catechism with Catholics Over Coffee, which is what we're doing now. And ultimately, that becomes a training resource or enablement resource for leaders. We're looking for you. You're out there. We know we can find you. We're going to make you leaders in small groups, because we need them. We absolutely need them. So check us out on social media. Eventually, we're going to get up some Instagram. We're going to get up all the stuff, the Insta snaps, the Snapgrams, face snaps, Instabook, and all that good stuff. Everything that's out there. Tick, Twitter, talk, all that. I'm showing my age, aren't I? It's all good. Thank you guys for checking us out. I hope this has been helpful. These are just my thoughts, but we'll keep it going. So can't wait till we start. You guys take care. I can't wait till we have guests on the show. We will eventually, but take care. Thanks for checking us out. We'll see you next time.